Hello and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism. I am your host, Alex Williams, and I am joined by two other hosts, beautiful, handsome, spectacular, incredibly, stunningly intelligent, and very cool dudes. Ethan Myers, do you want to say hi?
It's beautiful to be here, folks, and it's wonderful to be back. Great to be here.
And we've got Nick Laporte as well.
Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody.
Now, I just want to be clear right up front. All of those adjectives and adverbs, modifying those adjectives, those applied to both of you guys. I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm excited to get into this show. We don't have any particular updates posted. Does anybody have anything they want to share right from the jump?
Nope. I don't think so.
No? Wow.
It's been a little slow in the Urbanist news source these days,
Yeah. I feel like this week went by fast, but we're here and happy as Austin is joining us in the chat here live because he's a patron on patreon.com/radiofreeurbanism. Austin says, happy RFU Day. That's right. Every Wednesday is RFU Day. So we're just going to jump right into our first story here.
Wait, Alex.
Wait.
Are there any other things patrons can benefit from? Or
That's a great question, actually. Are there?
Yes, there are.
There are.
Yes.
There are.
In fact, if you're listening to this and you're not a patron, that means you're not listening to it on Wednesday. You're listening to it on Thursday or later, because only patrons get early access to the episode and also live access like we have here, Austin live chat. Oh, we got two in the audience now. Welcome. What else can we get? What else we got?
On top of that, you get access to our Discord, and you also get to support the lovely faces of Radio Free Urbanism.
That's true. That's you know what, and that alone should be enough. We appreciate your support. We do have a few patrons, and we appreciate everybody who tunes in and supports us. Continuing to do this show. It's something we really enjoy and look forward to. Austin says, does becoming a patron start construction of the Green Line? Sadly, no. But we have thought about starting a GoFundMe for it. We'll talk more about that in our second story. But first, we'll let Ethan start with his story.
Yes, absolutely. So, folks, you may have noticed this past weekend, if you are a resident of Southern California or Southern Nevada, that it became increasingly difficult to get between Las Vegas and the wonderful Los Angeles area, or just Southern California in general. And this was due to a shutdown of the Interstate I-15. Now, this shutdown was caused by a wonderful truck tipping over and catching fire, and not just catching fire with anything, but catching fire with lithium batteries, which, if you know any little bit about firefighting, takes forever to put out. So, this highway was shut down for at least 12 hours, and there were residual backups the whole time that this was ongoing. People were stuck on the highway, pretty much no other option, and connections between the two cities were basically stranded for that whole period. Now, if there were some other sort of alternative other than flying, this might have been, not as big of a deal when it comes to it. But unfortunately, this area really is only connected in two ways, and that is by driving and by flying. Now, there is a change to that possibly coming up with Brightline West. However, it's still quite a ways away, and this story really does show the fact that we just need more redundancy when it comes to our travel, and especially when it comes to transportation. Because if everything is going to be jammed up and put into a gridlock like this because of one little incident, probably not a great transportation network. But what do you guys think? How do we feel about this one?
Well, I think 75,000 pounds, I think it was the container weight. That's a lot of lithium-ion batteries. That is unfortunate. It comes with the extra worries about off-gassing and things like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Take this opportunity and run with it. Hey, we need more options to move around our country. Build more trains. It's just like, you got to take it when you can get it.
Yeah, I think redundancy is huge. I mean, you even see it with the, CrowdStrike? Is that what the software was? With those issues with the airlines, my sisters happened to have gotten, they were about to get on an airplane as that was as that was going on. And so they experienced the delays from that, and there weren't other options for them to get to where they were going. And so these redundancies are huge. I've been rewatching Stargate, a great sci-fi series, by the way. If you have been feeling upset with the state of Star Wars lately, go watch some Stargate. It's a really great series. There are 17 seasons. Anyways, I was watching this episode, and in this episode, they had gotten down to the basement of this bunker and it's like a huge shaft in this building. They had gotten down there via elevator. Well, when they were down there, power goes out. They're like, fine, we'll take the stairs. Well, there's an earthquake and it knocked out the stairs. They're like, okay, we'll take the ladder. Well, as they're going up the ladder, a few of the rungs fall out. One of the guys falls down and hurts himself. Okay, ladder's out. They've got rope. And so it's having these redundancies when things go wrong so that we can deal with these situations, right? It's not that you necessarily want to take Brightline every time yourself. You might prefer the drive. But in a situation like this, you might say, well, you know what, that's going to be closed for a little bit. I'll just take the train. Having other options available to you, it's the same thing. In Calgary, we had the Calgary Stampede. There are a lot of people who will drive downtown. But then during the Stampede, if they're going to the Stampede, they say, well, actually, it's going to be busy. There's not going to be places for me to park because a lot of the parking lots get taken up with the festival space. So they're going to say, I'll take the train. So having these options available to us in incidents like this is such a huge deal. Having those mobility freeing options is a big deal.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is not exactly a one-off thing. I mean, we'll see incidents of, highways being shut down, even, on a daily basis when it comes to larger cities where, you might have accidents, there might be a crime investigation going on the highways, and it will completely shut down traffic on one lane, the whole, freeway or highway or whatever roadway.
Yeah,
and it's
or
just
construction, too.
Exactly, that too. That can absolutely cause this. And having these alternatives to really kind of, at least hold over traffic and make sure that it's, not gridlocking or at least, jamming up every other, way of getting around our cities and countries, is absolutely what we need. I mean, a lot of transit systems even came out of just literally just being traffic mitigation. If you know Tri-Rail in the Miami, Southern Florida area, that was supposed to be a temporary fix to construction on I-95. But it ended up becoming a full-on solution and becoming an actual part of Southern Florida's transit network purely because it was so effective at moving people and reducing traffic on I-95 when it was under construction.
That's actually really interesting. I think, we realize that there are some different efficiencies depending how we're getting people around. I know the train in Calgary, that was a big, we're getting to be a larger city. How do we move so many people into the center of the city? Well, the most efficient way to do that is going to be with trains. And that's what we've done, and it's worked really well for us. And so I think, considering these options and making sure that that we have redundancies in the system and additional ways to get around, I think is kind of the point of it.
Absolutely.
Do you know how this how this happened?
The battery fire or Tri-Rail?
Yeah, the battery fire. Was it just a freak accident?
So it seems like it. There's not a whole ton of details other than the truck flipped in a lot of the articles. It's just that the truck flipped, caught fire, and then, temperatures out in this area really have not helped with, putting out the fire. But, I mean, it did get put out. Traffic is flowing once again on 15 to some extent. I mean, it's always going to have some sort of congestion because it's the fastest direct route between the two cities, and there's really no other alternative anyway. But I mean, it's open. That's most of the details that we got out of it. We may get a little more in the future, but for right now, all we know is that it tipped over, caught fire, shut down the highway. Took a long time to put out.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely is seeing these events like this. But it's going to be more normal, especially with, the rise in lithium battery use, and we have to be ready to adapt to that with different transit strategies as well too, just to be aware of if this is intentional or if it's a freak accident of some kind. We have to be actively adapting our transit to be, more flexible with situations like this.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it before on the podcast, but we need to invest in other types of batteries that don't suffer from this thermal runaway. Like, it's just crazy that we have a thing that is basically like an explosive in the sense that once you light a small part of it, the rest basically has to go with it. Like, you just can't do anything about it. It just goes. It all goes. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I know you talk about that a lot on your channel, Nick, talking about micromobility options and stuff, and making sure, like, don't cheap out on your battery.
Yeah, but even still, right? That can still happen.
It's possible. Yeah. I mean, it's the lithium ion battery. I mean, it's going to happen regardless. I mean, it can happen regardless. It's not going to happen, but it can.
It will happen.
It will
it's
happen.
Like a phoenix, right? It just bursts into flames once it's done. You're like, okay, well, need a new one.
Well, it's back.
Yeah. Except it doesn't come back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, take care of your stuff, and don't mess around with it either.
Don't mess around with lithium batteries, and make sure our transit network has backup plans.
Yeah. I think that's a fair lesson to take away from this. Any other thoughts on this one before we move on to my story here? No?
No, Alex, I think you should just steal every story. No, I'm just kidding. Let's move on to the Green Line.
All right. Well, clearly Ethan is trying to bring our off-screen beef into the show, which I'll rise above that. I'm a better man than
Alex really said. When they go low, I go high. He really pulled out the whole.
Yeah. I know you're trying to take some low blows and cheap shots there, Ethan, but I'll be the bigger person, and I'll just say, I think you're a great person, and all the people listening can witness. Austin in the chat says, "Fight."
We're taking bets
after the show. That'll be a Patreon special.
Patron exclusive. The Ethan versus Alex boxing match. Yeah. Nick will be taking bets.
Yeah, and it will not be rigged. I promise you that. Totally not rigged at all.
No way. This is not like the WWE.
It's gonna be real. Wink, wink. So this story that I've got here, we've got some updates from the Green Line, and so the Green Line, I've talked about it on the show before, and it is a new LRT line in Calgary to go along with the red and blue lines. This one is different from the red and blue lines. This is a low floor light rail vehicle that will be used. This is the red and blue line. They started both, decades and decades ago. The Green Line, the original study, I think was 1987. Is when we did the original study for this train, kind of saying, like, someday this is going to be a route that we'll send a train on. And we had the rights of way prepared, and we kind of always knew that this train was coming. Well, I have good news. The train is coming. It is going to be built. However, in yesterday's meeting of council, it was descoped, which is pretty upsetting, at least for the initial phase. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to show you the original plan, and I'm going to show you the new plan. So, actually, I think the original plan that I'm showing you might be actually smaller than before as well. So, in Calgary, this is downtown up here. Near the confluence of the rivers, and Eau Claire, and then 7th Ave, Center Street, 4th Street. This is where Stampede Park is. The stadium, the new arena, Scotia Place, is going to be right at 4th Street Station, and then we have these stations headed all the way down to Shepherd Station here, and at Shepherd Station, that's where they were going to have the depot for the trains. Well, because of cost overruns, the estimates for this project, I think, were done back in 2015. And now that we're finally building it, we're realizing huge cost overruns. So this is the new plan. So as you can see, Eau Claire, 7th Ave, the Center Street station is no longer there. 4th Street is still there. That's an important one because along with the arena here, 4th Street is actually going to be where the kind of the Calgary Central Station will be with the provincial rail, and so we've kept that obviously, and now it stops at Linwood instead of going down to Shepherd here. So you can see Shepherd Station, Douglas Glen, Quarry Park, South Hill, Ogden, and Center Street stations gone, which is pretty frustrating. And a lot of people are very upset, myself included. I'd love to have seen this project start a long time ago. But yeah, now we're going to have a depot and maintenance and storage facility at the Highfield station. So this is pretty disappointing. This it's good news in that it's actually being built. Like this, the construction is beginning. This is going forward, but it's disappointing news because we're missing huge pieces of this project. And of course, once the project goes forward, it will stretch from, once it's final, once it's completed, it'll go from Seton all the way down in South Calgary with the biggest hospital in the city, or not the biggest hospital, but a hospital down there, all the way up to North Point or Livingston, all the way in North Calgary. So it'll get there, and this is a start. So I'm looking forward to it beginning. If we had tried to just say like, fine, it's $10 billion, we're going to go for the $10 billion. We're just going to keep pushing. This at least gets the project started. We have something that we can start now, that we can begin now, and then we can carry on in the future, adding stations and growing it out as more funding becomes available. So yeah, any questions? What do you guys like? What do you think of this?
Like, it's disappointing, but like you said, it's good that they're going forward and actually, going to break ground and get this thing underway soon. But as long as the right of way, they still own them and they have the opportunity to continue to expand, that's a great thing. But yeah, it's just the opportunity that gets lost when they don't do these things to their full potential is just really disappointing. Because you think about all those people who would be getting on the train from those stations that are south of Linwood and Millican, like that's going to be a huge change in the way people move around the city, having those extra options. I mean, the Center Street one being removed is too bad, but it's really those ones I feel like that go out to the more outer suburbs that were really important in this case, to really showcase how effective these are at moving people and showing the people who live in those neighborhoods how easily it can be to get on transit.
Yeah. It's really disappointing to see any sort of transit project get slashed down at this point. My one question, though, is that I do see the line crosses the river at like the very end on the new extension to that last station. I'm just wondering what their thought process was there, building a river crossing and then immediately stopping construction after that. Unless they're using an existing rail bridge that's there, or existing bridge, because I mean, that's some of the most expensive things that you can do when it comes to any sort of transit building, is actually crossing, bodies of water. And it's just interesting seeing that they would just choose to be like, okay, yeah, line gets over the river. Let's just stop the extension here. So
there is a rail bridge there already. This is along the CPKC right-of-way in Calgary. There is a rail bridge there already. However, I don't know. I'm assuming they're going to twin it. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I can see wanting to bring it across the river because Highfield is an industrial zone, and Linwood kind of gets it into the those earlier suburbs here. Let me pull up Google Maps here just to kind of show where we're talking about. So we've got, here we go. Okay, so Highfield Station, this is kind of where we're looking at here. So you can see the rail right of way. It's going to come down like this, and then this is where kind of the depot is going to be. And then it's going to come across the river. So there's the existing crossing. So obviously, like, they're going to need to do something there.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but then it comes in to Linwood Milliken. So this is kind of getting it to the, those early suburbs, hooking it up with that, and that way we can continue on eventually. It's just getting that piece solved, because this is like, a lot of people will be able to drive here or take the bus here. If you don't get this piece, then getting people, like busing people from the other places where the Green Line will eventually get to down here in the suburbs, busing them to this station is a lot easier than busing them to this station in order to get
fair.
downtown.
That's fair.
Right. So I think that's the logic there. Well, I've got Google Maps here too. I'll note this is where we're talking about the central station for Calgary being, near the library, the municipal building, City Hall. The new arena will be right here, and then it's going to go underground, and then it'll connect with the other two lines on 7th Ave.
I will say it is incredibly short-sighted to limit any sort of transit when it comes to actually building it out like this, because if you realistically think about it, these costs are only going to keep going up. It's what's been happening for the past 50 years when it comes to any sort of infrastructure projects. So building now is always the cheapest option. Building more now is without a doubt going to be the cheapest option, and you're also going to get that cost to scale. So yeah, you'll see the bigger number now, but over time, when you do phase 1 now and it's this shorter section, and then you do phase 2 and 5 to 10 years from now, it's going to be more expensive to do phase 2 than it was to do phase 1 of building this new line. So it is incredibly frustrating to see when transit networks do things like that and kind of piecemeal it slowly together. And I get it, city budgets, they're not exactly set in the way of, for transit building. And I mean, that's just how it's been in North America for the past, almost century at this point. But I mean, there's got to be some sort of institutional funding change to actually make it easier to build transit infrastructure, because I mean, we know it's better. Obviously, we're preaching to the choir out here when it comes to this one.
And like, you're not just preaching to the choir on this call, on this podcast. It's this is an extremely popular project in Calgary. Polls, politicians, past and present, have all borne this out. Like, this is a very, very popular infrastructure project. Everybody knows that this is important. People in the suburbs know that this is important. People closer to downtown knows this is important. This is a big deal, and it's very popular. It is a money thing. Like you said, city budgets aren't built for this. And this is why we need to start having a conversation about the expectations that we have between our municipal government, our provincial governments, and the federal governments about who is building transit, for who, and how, and how much we value this. Right now in Calgary, there's a huge highway project being done. We're doing some upgrades and improvements to Deerfoot Trail, the main highway that goes through the city. And I don't think those upgrades are unimportant, but in the conversation about those upgrades, we're not talking about the cost. Nobody's saying, oh my goodness, this price has ballooned this much, and look what we're dealing with now. I'm not sure we can do this. We're talking about, they're just doing that thing, and I'm frustrated by the traffic of it. And when we talk about a transit project, suddenly we're very worried about the cost, which obviously is an issue. Like, we have to pay for it. It doesn't just appear. But the way that we have these conversations, this train, with the reduced scope, this train has a 30,000 daily ridership expectation. That's huge. That's a big deal. That's a lot of people who will be taking this train to get to work, to get to the library, to get downtown for whatever activity they're looking to engage in. And so I think this is a really important project, and I think we do need to have a conversation about how we plan these things, because this is a huge project that the expectation has been the city will build this, and so I think we do need more involvement and maybe some more regularity about these projects, right? Because part of the reason why light rail is so much more expensive to build in North America versus in Europe is because Europe has people who their job is to build light rail. Whereas how many people in North America do you have to retrain in order to get this project done? That's a huge expense.
We're
right?
starting to get to it, but a lot of our industry, unfortunately, when it comes to actually building and planning light rail, is subcontracted out to private firms. So, unfortunately, the thing is that we aren't doing these projects that we should be doing in-house. We're contracting it out to someone else who's going to charge 5 times, 10 times more than what it should actually cost. And this is where a lot of people, they like to complain about, oh, the government spends too much. But unfortunately, it's really contracting out to private government, to private agencies that work with governments on contracting, rather than just actually doing it in-house. Because then you'd actually be able to save money for your agency to actually work on expanding projects. And on top of that, still pay your government employees well. It's just something that unfortunately isn't done too well here in North America, Canada, or the U.S. Both countries have pretty serious problems with subcontracting out things that absolutely don't need to be subcontracted out to. But on top of this, it really just is so frustrating seeing this financial, funding issues that we have for these systems, because unfortunately, at least here in the US, I don't know if it's similar in Canada, but a lot of our funding for our transportation, our public transportation, is done through ballot initiatives. So they have to get, usually it's a sales tax. Okay. So a lot of our public transportation projects, usually not like maintaining the actual transit, is funded through sales taxes. So if, say, they want to expand a light rail in X city, that city has to pass some sort of city or county sales tax in order to fund that. They can do that, or they can go out to the federal government or state government for grants to funding. And unfortunately, it's kind of like scrounging for pennies in order to get actual funding for transit expansion, rather than highways, where they get a lot of their actual general funding from the federal government, straight from taxpayers who are paying their income tax.
Right. Yeah, so that is different. We don't have the same ballot initiatives, and in Alberta we actually don't have a provincial sales tax at all. We just have the federal goods and services tax. But yeah, that's interesting, and I do think this should open up a broader conversation about, like you said, how we fund transit projects and how we treat these things. I would love to live in a world where when a new neighborhood is built, that, well, yeah, of course we're going to hook into the light rail system because, well, that's how people get around. They get around on foot, by bike, by car, by transit, and so I think those are important considerations. And so I hope with this project that we see some opportunities to learn lessons from it and to move forward and maybe just have like some regularity in what we're doing here, right? That by the end of this phase of the project, that the next phase is just ready to go. And we say, yeah, well, we're starting construction on that. Like the second shovels are out of the ground on phase 1, we're starting on phase 2. And then on phase 3, like we're just going to keep rolling with it. That'll bring down the cost because you have some regularity in your market where it's like, yeah, there's tons of LRT building jobs. And that's just something that, making it boring almost, right? Like make it really uninteresting. So like, yeah, there's just another station because it's a new area.
It's also really interesting too, because Calgary's done this before. In fact, they were the model of getting light rail for cheap. They're one of the first, them and Edmonton were some of the first cities to do it in North America. Yeah. You have Edmonton, Calgary, San Diego, Portland, Sacramento, who were all kind of the pioneers of building cheap light rail for a city. Yeah. And while, there's been ranging amounts of success, we know how to do it. We know the strategies on how to build light rail for cheap. The problem is that we've strayed too far away from these existing strategies, and we need to kind of rope it back to those old strategies of, standardized designs, consistent expansions that keep going through, utilizing right-of-ways that, can be done fairly affordably, but yet will still have connections, connecting to other transit services, destinations. We know this. The problem is that we stray too far away from it, and we do things out of house with way too much consulting that should be done.
Yeah. Nick, you've let Ethan and I yap on. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking that if And when the Green Line gets built, Calgary will have more lines than Toronto.
Really?
They really only have two major lines, right? Like,
if we're are we talking metro? Because I mean,
it is metro, I know, but still.
Yeah. Toronto's got all the streetcars and stuff,
which come with their own separate issues.
Their own issues. At least we've got a clear right of way and signal priority, and don't have to share lanes with cars.
That is a nice thing.
So it is a nice thing. The luxurious world of Calgary. Wow.
Yeah. But just back to what you said earlier about when you build a new neighborhood, you make a neighborhood, you make it complete. It's not like, oh, we're just going to slop down some houses, have some roads, and then we'll see what happens later. Like having all of those connections already built into the process, that's super important.
Could you imagine a world where we just like built houses and then the developer left and said, well, someday the city will add roads, I guess.
Yeah.
Good luck getting to your home, right? Like we need to think about these things. We're talking about complete neighborhoods here. Let's make them complete. Let's finish them, right? Like let's make it a place worth being regardless of your lifestyle and economic needs, right? If you're in a city, you should be able to be in that.
Yeah, it has many layers, right? It's not just we need to have rail connections or we need to have safe cycling infrastructure. It's about the zoning too. We know that's a problem, right?
And we
don't have mixed zoning.
We get this kind of evil cycle that goes on where we don't have transit infrastructure, therefore we can't have density, and we don't have density, so therefore we can't have transit infrastructure, and we can't have. It's just that evil positive cycle that just keeps going round and round of we can't do this because this, and we can't do this because this, and we have to do something at some point. Yeah. There's going to be growing pains. People need to understand that communities are not static. They are very dynamic environments, and there needs to be change.
But then also, go ahead.
I just want to see. I want to see a town be built somewhere. I want one of the provinces to be like, hey, we're going to build a new town in the middle of nowhere, and it's going to be great. Like, I know we've always talked about, like, you see it on Reddit and stuff. People like talk about like these private, rich people trying to make their own town. But like the province can do it. It's possible. They did it in the Netherlands. Houghton's a great example of that. It's a purpose-built 15-minute city. It exists. It's real. You can go there. I went.
Oh, we're going to have to talk about California forever eventually.
Like if Houghton was built in Calgary though, like, or in Alberta, it would just be a suburb of Calgary. It would just have everything you need, right? Like you're not going out into the middle of nowhere. And we do see like new communities being built with like some more of these ideas and principles in mind. There's a new community being built in Calgary that does have like a lot more mixed use and more shops, and it has like a clock tower in the middle of it that's like great for wayfinding when you're out wandering around your neighborhood, right? Like I love things like that. And then we have things like University District, West District. There's Midtown that's being started sometime soonish in Calgary, which will include a privately built infill train station, which I hope is kind of maybe kind of something that we can look at as like, this is a developer who saw that the people living here will be using the train to get around. So we will provide that, like we will build that as part of our project. And so I think that's going to provide an opportunity for us to look at other possibilities for actually making these projects happen. And unfortunately, we're playing catch up, right? Like that's why we have this mega project, is because when we should have been doing this long ago, we decided not to. And now we're playing catch up when we need to do it, when we're like desperate to do it, right? We need this project to be built, and we're playing catch up. And the deal with catch up is that you pay more. You pay more per mile because you should have started 40 years ago, not today. Yeah. And that's the bottom line. But we also live in reality, and we have to deal with the fact that we're starting today, not 40 years ago.
And you got to remember,
I have had a lot of thoughts and emotions about this because I've been waiting for this. I grew up in Mackenzie Town. I've been waiting for this my whole life. And so it's important to me to see this project get built, and it's important to 90% of the city to see this project get built. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But I wanted to bring that very Calgary news story to the show, just to share my thoughts, just to get that off my chest.
Feel cathartic for you, Alex?
I'm glad you did.
I actually do. I was arguing with a few of my friends about this project, and somebody said it'd be better if we just didn't do it at all. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Like, you think that getting part of it is worse than getting none of it? Like, what planet do you live on? This is a start, and it sucks that this is all we're getting right now, but we will keep going with it. This is an important project, and it's not just going to be this stub.
Transit infrastructure will always have more benefits than car infrastructure, no matter how much it costs per mile.
And in Calgary, we already see this. We have huge transit ridership, especially on our LRT, and so we will see continued efforts to make this happen. But anyways, that's enough yapping from me. Nick, it's your turn to do some talking.
Yeah, this is coming from Portland. So the city of Portland is removing traffic calming infrastructure because drivers run into them too often. Interesting. Well, this might seem like success to some. Continued clashes between car drivers and concrete planters has led to high maintenance costs, and transportation officials say it's not worth the effort. So these are essentially neighborhood traffic calming measures that have been in place since the pandemic, when people started biking around a bit more and realizing they wanted their neighborhoods to be safer. So this is, mostly talking about the kind of eastern part of Portland that's on that side of the Willamette. And since 2021, a lot of these have gone in, but a lot of drivers have been running into these. They're at like the entrance of an intersection, on the sides of the intersection, right in front of the opening mouth of each street. And it's basically just a planter. Think of like a round piece of concrete that's 1 meter in diameter and about, I don't know, between half a meter, maybe 750 centimeters, something like that.
For our viewers watching, there's an image. Centimeters.
Anyway, yeah. It's bright yellow. There's a signpost on top of it. You got to see these things, first of all, if you're driving. Like, if you're not seeing this, maybe you shouldn't be driving in the first place. But anyway, that's the point, is that these are there to slow down traffic and to reduce through traffic. Residents of the street, at least, have been saying that they've been working. However, people keep driving into them. It costs PBOT money, and that's why they're saying they're taking them away. So, I mean, what my thoughts on this is, like, Jesus Christ, like, make the people pay for them who run into them in the first place. Like, that's property damage. Obviously, people hit and runs and stuff like that, but like, that's a thing. I just don't know how you can prioritize your budget over the safety of the communities. It's just insane to me.
It is big, bright, and yellow. And I like, when we talk about this traffic calming stuff, I mean, this one is in the middle of the road, but you see these things on the sides of the roads as well, or on bike lanes, when you see like flexi posts and stuff, right? Like, who are we trying to help and protect, right? Like, when you're driving in a car, you have this metal cage around you, right? If you hit one of these things, especially if you're going the speed limit, which here is posted 15 miles an hour, like, it's not going to be hard, right? However, if you're driving a car and you're not paying attention and you go up the curb and hit a pedestrian, right? Like, you'll survive that, but depending on the type of vehicle you're driving and how fast you're going and who you hit, that pedestrian is dead. That's it. And that's what this traffic calming is about. This is supposed to be about people. But it's too expensive to protect your citizens. It's too expensive to take good care of the people who live in that neighborhood. We're not talking about like people traveling through the neighborhood. We're talking about the person who lives on that street that's benefiting from this traffic calming. So that's frustrating. That's really frustrating.
It's insane. It's just insane. I mean, we're fighting in our cities to make these things more common and to calm our local streets so that they're safer to move around on outside of a car. This is just regressive, like 100%. Like, there's no way to look at this and be like, this is a good thing, unless you're a driver who's hit one of these things, and you shouldn't be driving in the first place, like I said. So,
unfortunately,
yeah.
PBOT has been kind of on this. Their new leadership, I think, who came into power a couple of years ago, has been kind of not as friendly to bikes as previous administrations in Portland, so it is really disappointing to see this happen. But groups like Bike Portland are doing a really good job of, showing off these stories. They really have done a really good job of making sure that people know, hey, what's going on in Portland when it comes to the cycling infrastructure, and how, you know, traffic calming designs like this are actually under attack and not so much, you know, being commonly installed as, you know, we might think Portland is doing all the time. So it is really good to see that, you know, they're giving us an objective view of what's going on, you know, and to really kind of hold the administration of PBOT accountable, because they are designed for, you know, literally administering the entire transit within the city of Portland, whether it's cars or everything, because PBOT stands for Portland Bureau of Transportation. So it is very, very disappointing to see them remove this. And I mean, yeah, no, it really should be drivers having to pay to replace this infrastructure, or at least getting their licenses suspended and getting some sort of, you know, some sort of punishment for this, because there really is none when it comes to, you know, traffic violations in the U.S. Most of the time, it really is just brushed off. I mean, if you want to get away with any crime in America, do it in a car. That's literally the best way to get away with a crime in the U.S.
Yeah. And everybody sees this too, right? Like when you're out driving, how many crazy people are you behind? And you say, how does this person have a license? Like, I think we all see this. Like, we all agree that we should maybe have some guidelines, maybe, on who we give licenses to, instead of giving them out like candy to everybody. And then also, like, the thing you just showed us, Nick, that's like this huge yellow bright like signs and everything in the middle of the road. And if you missed that, you were not paying attention. Like, and it wasn't like I just looked down for a second. It's like you were not present. You were not driving your vehicle.
No.
Something else was. Like, you had your foot on the pedal, and that's it. You were not paying attention.
Like,
if you missed it.
How easily can you go outside right now and just stand on the side of the street? And how many times do you see a driver going by just looking into the lap or looking to their console because they're on their phone as they're driving? Like, for several seconds, just staring at their phone as they're, you know, behind the wheel of a multi-ton vehicle. Happens every single day. You see it all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah. On top, those infotainment screens are really bad too, that are in newer vehicles.
Yeah. Some of them, that's all you get. Like, my sister-in-law's Tesla, I drive once in a while when she's down. It's amazing. It's incredibly fast. It's fun to drive, but man, is that thing annoying to try to function when you're behind the wheel. There's nothing to do. You got two buttons on the steering wheel, and then it's just a big giant screen.
Yeah, and you're missing like the tactile feel, right? Like when I had my car, it was from the 90s, and I had buttons for everything, right? Like I didn't have to look at what I was doing. I was like, oh, there's this button, there's that button. Like I knew where things were. I could, you know, turn my hazards on without looking, right? And so like being able to actually have that that tactile relationship with what you're doing. This is the same reason like why we talk about, like when we talk about e-bikes, it's the same reason why pedal assist e-bikes are better than throttle e-bikes, because you're building a relationship with the activity you're partaking in, right? Like you're actually doing something. And so that's, I feel like today is a really woog-muggy day.
Pretty
Austin
commented
in the chat, he said, story or woog-mug? And I said, definitely both. It's just... Yeah,
it turns out everything's grinding our gears today.
Yeah, but he said, Austin here says, I remember when I drove daily and then occasionally get stuck with the old realization, did I just drive through a red light? And Skitch commented, same. I would zone out and was left wondering. And that's totally a thing too, right? Like that's why we need to design our streets better so that that's not happening. That like you're forced to pay attention because there's stuff going on. It's complex. There's no way that you cannot pay attention because you're going to cause a problem and you're going to be used to that.
Even good drivers make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even like
I've done that.
I've made mistakes when I'm driving. Right, I speed when I'm driving, and it's because that's this road feels like it's this speed, and everybody else around me is going this speed.
Gotta take
and so I think taking the design of the roads seriously. Like people hitting those posts. What does that say?
On top
what
of
does
this,
that say?
Enforcement. Not paying attention.
As much as we love traffic calming here, at some point we also have to indicate or add speed cameras and red light cameras, just because, you know, it's a really good way of making sure that people don't do these things as well. Not just oh, I need to slow down, but oh, it could cost me $200 for speeding through here.
Well, and isn't that the interesting thing? So at the train station, there's a level crossing with the rails, and there's a sign that says if you cross when the lights are flashing and the boom arms come down, that's, I think it's a $10,000 fine is what you can get slapped with. And it's amazing because when those boom arms come down, that's saying there is a multi-ton vehicle that will not be able to stop before it hits you. Like, it will see you and you will be dead. That's what those boom arms are saying, is like, by the way, if you step over this, if you step beyond this, you will die. But because we are so often as humans, we're like, no, I can make it. Like, I can run across. No, I'm paying attention. Because of that, we also have to add, oh, also, by the way, it's just $10,000 fine. Like, we have to add the fine in order to do the right thing, in order to incentivize people to do the right thing. Like, Nick, you got your speeding tickets when you were in the Netherlands. And, if you went back now, how much more would you be paying attention because you got 3 tickets?
Totally. And I'm talking about, I just got ticketed for going 3 kilometers over the speed limit. And it was a very small amount. But still, I'd be like, I don't want to pay that still. I don't need to save the 60 seconds or whatever I saved over that trip. I'd be going 99.
I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Always.
But there is this girl who lives in Germany on TikTok, and she's an American. And she posted a TikTok that kind of blew up. And it was basically her talking about, oh, yeah, I had 29 speeding tickets in Germany. And she told this to her coworkers, and they were all like, that's not normal. That's not normal.
They're
and
like,
I'm
you're
just
crazy.
like, 29 speeding tickets. You would think after the first 2 to maybe, go under the speed limit.
Yeah.
But also because it's like such like a minor thing, it's so much easier to get it too, right? Like, if you're not used to paying that much attention, right?
I got story time that's kind of related to this. So a few months ago, when Vancouver was looking at possibly adding more speed and red light cameras in the city, one of the counselors, who was an ex-police officer, made an argument against them because he ran into a lot of drivers who didn't care about the money that it costs to pay the ticket, saying that it wasn't a deterrent for wealthy people. And I'm just like, they're going to speed no matter what. Take their fucking money and use it to make the streets better. I'm just like, how is that an argument against? I'm like, oh my God, fucking crazy.
Well, isn't it Finland that calculates your ticket based on your reported income?
Yeah, it's one of those countries. I've heard that.
Yeah, which is it's an interesting idea. But I think the bottom line is that we choose how our cities are built, and how our cities are built affects the way that we get around, and how fast and how dangerously versus how safely we get around those cities, and how much we enjoy those cities at all phases of our life. Because guess what? If you're driving now, there is going to be a time when you will not be driving, whether it's because of old age, whether it's because something in your body stops working, maybe your eyes stop working, your ears, like whatever it is, there is going to be something that doesn't work anymore. And that's why we need to build our city for everybody, because someday you will not be the average healthy 20-something-year-old person that you are today, right? Like, at some point you will have to navigate your city in a different way, and at some point you might also be watching your kids navigate your city in a different way. And so it's really vital that we're building our cities for everybody, not just somebody who is late for work, right? And happens to be driving there. I think that's really, really important to remember. Any other thoughts on this one before we get on to our listener mail?
Just that, like, from the PBOT point of view, I understand, like, these specific traffic calming measures were put in so that they were affordable in the first place, right? Because you could build like a nice kind of diamond shaped traffic calming thing that has space for a pedestrian with bollards on either side of that in the middle of the street, so they, even in these slow streets, they have somewhere to walk. Not that I think that's necessary in local streets, but like there could be something more substantial there that if it was ran into, it wouldn't be something that needs to be repaired constantly. Because I don't even know what do these look like after they're hit. Are they completely broken? They don't have a picture of that.
There's no way.
No, it wouldn't, right?
Yeah. How hard are you hitting them?
If you're hitting them hard to break enough,
down?
if you're hitting them hard to break them, I mean, like, you're probably dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's get on to our listener
Let's
mail.
do it.
Continuing our beef with Sammy. The beef I started with Sammy. I did text him after, and we laughed about it. This commenter, St. Louis, who's commented on a lot of our videos. They have kind of a funny handle, but the beginning is St. Louis, and so they say Sammy was right. Buses suck compared to trains. We need to be pushing to rebuild our trolley networks that were taken from us. As long as they have dedicated protected lanes, they will be much more effective at moving us away from car culture than automobile buses. And I kind of get that. Like, I am very I'm very pro tram. Like, I think there are a lot of routes in Calgary that I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to have a tram here. You know, like I think most people do like trains better than buses because it's nice to step on a train. Trains are fun. Trains are more fun. Like, they're more fun and more comfortable. That's the bottom line of it. Is trains are more fun and more comfortable and more interesting than buses. But buses offer a lot of flexibility in their route and in their planning. And so as much as we might enjoy riding the train more, I think buses are and will continue to be an integral part of our transit services and how we get around our cities.
I gotta agree with you on this one, Alex. I love trains. No fucking shit.
Yeah.
But
What?
I also love buses too, just not as much. But there's one of my favorite little things is I do love streetcars. The problem is that they're not a great solution when it comes to actually building out transit for our cities. They're awesome last mile connections for a lot of our cities, but the problem is that even if you give them the dedicated right-of-ways, they're on the slower end. They'll usually be at best the speed of buses, usually a little bit slower. And they can be really good for connecting, dense neighborhoods that, have too many riders to actually, be handled by buses. One of my favorite examples is the Tempe streetcar. It enhances an already existing light rail service in Tempe, Arizona that connects you to both Mesa, Arizona and Phoenix. But the streetcar can take you to a lot of different neighborhoods around America's, I would say, biggest college town, Tempe, Arizona. It's a city with over 40,000 students, so it has, and it's getting denser and denser every day, so it has a lot of demand within the downtown to get around it that buses can handle to some extent, but in a lot of ways, trams are a great option, and they chose, trams and streetcars for that, but it's not their main option. It's their secondary, supplementary option. And I think that's great, but buses are the real hard hitters. And if you want to have a good transit network, you're not going to have one without a good bus network.
Yeah. And Skitch in the live chat, thanks for being a patron and supporting us on patreon.com/radiofreeurbanism. Skitch says Arizona mentioned, so I'm assuming Skitch is from Arizona, or at the very least just a big fan. But yeah, you're right. We need a variety of options. It's the same thing. Like, we talk a lot about car dependency and things like that. Like, I don't hate cars. I hate car dependency. I hate that in many instances we're forced to use cars. I think we should have options, and I think that's kind of what the point that I guess we're all getting to. Sammy, St. Louis, like, all of us are talking about, like, we need a variety of options in order to build a good city. You need to have a variety of choices. I don't hate buses. I don't hate trains. I don't hate cars. I don't hate bikes. I don't hate walking. We need a variety of options for moving around our city. But Nick, do you want to take this next one here?
Yes, this is from Cody Littlefield. They say, yeah, Alex, nobody in Calgary slows down for construction zones at all. It's becoming unsafe to slow down because everybody behind you and around you are going 20 to 30 kilometers faster than us. Yeah. This is definitely true. I don't know if I talked about it or not on this podcast, but that's definitely what I see in my city. And I've always seen, you'll see signs that's like 30 kilometers per hour, even though, it's traditionally a 50 or 60 kilometer hour street. People are still going the old speed limit, even though there's a construction zone. Enforcement, what is that? What is enforcement? Traffic enforcement doesn't exist here as far as I can tell.
Yeah. This is a problem everywhere, not just
it's been getting worse too.
Yeah. So and we talked about that last week about, like, again, built environment and enforcement. These things in conjunction can help us make sure that, like, that speed limit is actually like a limit, instead of, like when you're driving on the highway, if you're driving on the QE2, you're not driving 110. It's not like you're not driving the posted speed limit. You are going at least 10 kilometers an hour over that. Otherwise, you're slowing down and pulling over, and sitting on the side of the highway because you're going slower than everybody. So I think, taking these things more seriously is important. Ethan, take us away.
Absolutely. And our final piece of listener mail comes to us from the wonderful Jen Hall. And she asked, or comments, I've always thought it's weird that there isn't any form of requalification test for driving vehicles in North America. At least not until you are 75 plus years old, and that's a medical test. What are your thoughts on this? So it really, in this case, it really actually goes state by state. Like, it really does vary quite a bit depending on which state you're in. So a lot of states will, actually require you to come in and at least take like every 5 to 10 years the written test again. And usually it's not the actual driving test unless you've had like a DUI or something like that. But usually it is some form of written test. But some states, and I'm going to shout out Arizona here in the worst way, give you your ID like 20 years before you even have to renew it. So your ID will quite literally, it might even be longer in all honesty, but they will give you so much time before you actually even have to renew it in any sort of way. In Florida, it was 10 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Mine's 5 years. I got mine renewed just a few months ago, and now I'm looking at it. It's 5 years here in BC.
Yeah.
I know Arizonans have like 25 years. It's absurd.
But even still, like when I go in to renew it, I just give them money, and then they give me a new one. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah, it's not like it's not really like it's a proper renewal.
No, it's not. It's
you're just checking in. Hey, I still live here.
Here's my money. Thank you.
What it is.
You sign this paper.
Yeah. You don't have to do the test again or anything. I was having this conversation with one of my friends. He's 80, and he just recently had to go through a medical test to make sure he was still fit for driving, and he is. This guy, he's just as active as I am, so he's totally capable, and he went through the process to get his license renewed, but it is just a medical thing. It's not a skill testing thing, and I do think that we should seriously consider, like, hey, making sure. And I think again, like, you might not feel like you need that skill testing thing, right? Like, if you hear me say, like, hey, maybe we should do some, a fresh driver's test every 10 years or whatever, right? Like, make sure you still know the rules of the road. Make sure you're up to date on the rules of the road, because things do change. Things like that. You might hear me say that and think like, well, I don't need that. Like, I'm paying attention. That's really nice. But again, when you're out driving, how many people do you see on the road that you think, boy, that person should get off the road? Honestly, like, count them today when you're out on your commute. And so I think that's something that we should actually take seriously.
Absolutely.
Is our licensing process.
It's huge.
If anything, just to give people updates on the laws so they have them fresh in their mind, because there's so many laws that people seem to just forget. Once they're done, they get their license, they're out of the door. That's it. They forget about this. I had this happen the other day. I was crossing the street at an unmarked crosswalk, which is just an intersection where, sidewalks are on either side. And as I was beginning to cross, I'm a pretty bold pedestrian. The guy just didn't stop, and he went right in front of me, and I tapped the back of his car. as he went by. Then he slammed on the brakes, starts yelling at me. He's like, I got you on camera. I'm going to report you. I'm like, please put it on like the Vancouver subreddit. I can't wait to see you get torn apart. But people don't know. Like, he's like, that's not a thing. Unmarked crosswalk's not a thing. I was like, oh, just like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
If you don't know that, really want,
you don't know you're supposed to stop for pedestrians?
Do you know what? And the guy might honestly just
he
not
doesn't.
know.
He didn't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like he's being malicious. He thought I was following the rules.
Now, of course, you will run into your fair share of malicious drivers out there. Don't get it wrong.
For sure.
100%. 100%.
But you can also be a maliciously compliant pedestrian. One time, I did see a video of someone. It was like an SUV that pulled up and was blocking a busy crosswalk. And it was in LA. So what I saw is this guy straight up just hopped on the hood, walked over it, and then kept walking down.
Oh, I've seen these. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think too. One last note I wanted to mention here. I know another 80-year-old guy, my great uncle. He's starting to have a lot of memory issues, a lot of cognitive issues, and so recently he had his license taken away, and that has negatively affected him because that's how he got around. And recently, when I saw him a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about going and getting it back. He's not going to get his license back. Like, he can't, right? And everybody in the family knows this. But he feels that it's important for him to get his license back because that's the way he knew how to get around the city, right? And so I think that's another reason why we need to build options, is so that when you can't get around through driving, you have other ways to get around. And there's some cool stuff that we've talked about on the show, ways to support our aging family members in getting around the city. And yeah, so I'm optimistic that we can continue like actually helping people get around the city. But
such a muggy episode.
Yeah, this is a very I feel my heart rate has been up this whole episode. I'll probably get like an alert from my watch or something.
Well, I've been locked in all episode.
Yeah, that I need to calm down. This has been a very muggy episode, but I am optimistic. I'm optimistic about the future. And we do have one more wug mug. Nick's going to share. Comes from Austin in the chat.
This is so much I want to share too, but yeah, we're going to end it here with Austin in our live chat. You can join us patreon.com to get in the live chat. But Austin says, what grinds my gears? People that don't stop their car at or before the stop line, resulting in blocking the crosswalk. Absolutely. This is such a thing. It's insane how common this is. And when you go to other countries, especially in Europe, it doesn't happen. Why? Why? Are they just better drivers? No, it's because the light is in a position that if you're in that spot on the crosswalk, it's not just your light that you don't see. You don't see any of the traffic lights anymore. You don't want to be there because you don't know what's going to happen. You got to back up, get behind that line so that you can see your traffic light. And we need to do that here in North America. It's way safer.
Absolutely.
Let me, I'll share my screen quick because this is actually something that came up on Threads today. So this was posted by Bike YYC, who I'm pretty sure Austin saw this as well. They posted this. This is exactly what we're talking about. Somebody is parked over the crosswalk because they can still see the lights on the other side. But if we had near side signals, near side traffic lights, this would not be an issue. You and I might be able to cross this. Like, I might feel comfortable walking out into the intersection, kind of maybe with a little bit of sass, going in front of the vehicle, kind of being like, hey, thanks for taking up the crosswalk. Maybe, like Ethan mentioned, somebody might climb over the vehicle.
I don't recommend climbing over this crosswalk. One.
We very much do not recommend that. But in this circumstance, you're trying to cross the street. If you have a mobility aid, if you're using a scooter or you're using maybe a walker or a wheelchair,
you're screwed.
This is a problem. You're not crossing that street, and depending on the area you're in, you might be waiting a while in order to cross the street. And so I think, that's a great thing to end on. That's something we can advocate for, something that we can talk about, is near side signals. It literally has only upside. It's not complicated to do. You just need to turn the traffic lights, from this way to this way, and then it's there. And Austin adds in the chat that Canmore has one of these signal intersections, which I believe we've talked about that intersection on the show.
And while we're at it, just make them smart signals too. We're done with these stupid, dumb signals. Why you got to wait at a red light in the middle of the night when nobody's around? It should just know you're there and turn green for you.
Yeah. Yeah. See, look, we're fighting for everybody here. We just, honestly, we just wanted to get around.
Yeah, beg buttons are stupid. Have it programmed in to actually have a pedestrian cross. Yes. I hate beg buttons so much.
Yeah.
Even more now living in Las Vegas, purely because when I press one, I get third-degree burns.
Oh, yeah. You need the wave ones. There's some that the city can get that you just wave your hand over it.
We could just program them to always expect a pedestrian to be at the intersection.
Yes.
I have some thoughts on that might make you hate me. I am not as hateful of beg buttons as you guys are. I think they do have a place because that is the sensor that lets the machine know that we're there and ready to cross. Okay. That's my
We should have a beg button for cars.
Anti-beg button.
If we have room for pedestrians, then why not for cars?
Wait.
That's what the smart signals are. That's what the smart signals are. Is that when you pull up, there's the sensor that says, "Oh, there's a car here now." Otherwise, it doesn't change.
Wait to cross 6th Avenue.
Hey, do you know what? I like that.
I love the wait. Wait.
When it gets an attitude. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
Skitch wants us to fight.
6th Avenue.
Yeah. We will be hosting the Radio Free Urbanism boxing match.
We're doing bare knuckle. Bare knuckle, guys. Come on.
Nick would destroy both of us.
2v1. 2v1.
Well, you see, the fight would just be Alex and I looking like.
Yeah, we'd be like, oh, Nick's all the way up there. Yeah. Nick would crush us both in a physical contest. But hey, we'd have fun. We'd have fun.
It's all about fun.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fun, this has been, and I say we wrap up.
I say we wrap this up too.
Yeah, Nick, what do you say? Do you say we
wrap it up?
All right, I think we have a majority here.
Yeah.
No, let's wrap it
Yeah.
up.
All in favor of wrapping up, say aye and raise your right hand.
That's my left hand.
That's my left hand.
That's, well, come on, guys. Austin says nay, but too bad. Patreon support does not get you voting rights. Come on the show sometime,
Actually,
Austin.
It does give you voting rights. You get full voting rights. We just get to ignore it.
But we get to ignore it.
We're the judiciary branch here. Yeah, exactly.
Rights. Yeah. All right. Well, the Security Council has spoken. We're going to wrap this thing up. Ethan, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely, Alex. You can find me over at Climate and Transit on pretty much every platform. Nick, where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Nick Laporte or Nick the Door and other social media platforms. Alex, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Humane Cities on YouTube.com and on Instagram.com. And I will say, as a last note, I do have a video coming. I did film some stuff. I showed Nick some proof. Is it going to be interesting, Nick?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for it. I'm trying some new stuff out. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. With that, Ethan, kick us off here.
Folks, trained good, car bad.
2 wheels good.
And, of course, feet first.